Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you for spending part of your Friday with us. Well, tonight we are going to take a look at impeachment through several different angles. Now, we're going to speak with a former Clinton advisor who helped that president during his impeachment fight. We'll also look at all the politics involved with ABC News political director Rick Klein. Then a look ahead at what's next and who we will be hearing from. And also, a quick programming note. We are broadcasting all the hearings live, then recapping and discussing them on RFL at 6 o'clock each night. We'll show you highlights and chunks from 7 to 9. Each night there's a hearing. So tomorrow evening, for example, Friday, I know I said that off the top, it's 6 to 9 will be a special program. And in the morning, we will have those hearings, which tomorrow begin at 9 a.m. Now, you can see all of it on RNN and our affiliated stations in Boston, D.C., and Philadelphia. But first, a little bit about Orwell yesterday. By any impartial standard, it was revelatory. Here is Bill Taylor, the acting ambassador to Ukraine, with a soundbite that's getting the most headlines.
The member of my staff could hear President Trump on the phone asking Ambassador Sondland about the investigations. Ambassador Sondland told President Trump the Ukrainians were ready to move forward. Following the call with President Trump, the member of my staff asked Ambassador Sondland what President Trump thought about Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland responded that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden, which Giuliani was pressing for.
Now, Trump cared more about investigations of Biden than helping an ally of the United States. And don't forget, Taylor said that under oath. Plus, multiple reports are saying that a second embassy staffer in Kiev overheard the same cell phone call that Taylor just described. So now you have multiple ear and eye witnesses. Now, all day yesterday, we heard from two civil servants who, by all accounts, nonpartisan, qualified, and who put country first. Both gave damning testimony about what the president did with Ukraine and how he tried to use political policy for political gain. Also, we saw one party trying to at least figure out what happened and ask probing questions as to both the events that occurred and the mindsets that led to them. Then you had another party that, by, I don't know, fair estimations, went with conspiracy theories, debunked ideas, and outright falsehoods. Now, a bit later in the program, we're going to show you how the two totally separate narratives are playing out in the media depending on the channel of your choice. Really mind-boggling. But first, we start with an exercise. Here's what we asked our friend Andrew to do. What would the reaction be if someone else, other than our president, had done half the things that Trump has done and is doing? And I'm not going back 3 years. I'm just going back in the recent memory. And again, for that, we bring in senior political correspondent Andrew Whitman.
Well, Rich, first of all, the Ukraine story is confusing, and it certainly can be for people at home. Lots of different names to try to keep track of, many of them Ukrainian, as well as diplomats, most of whom the public will otherwise never know nor meet, describing events that happen thousands of miles away and can feel very distant from our own lives and even our national politics. Cutting through that confusion was the point of Nick Kristoff's column in today's Times. He asked us to consider if Trump were anyone else accused of the same or similar things, how would we respond? And he concludes with a firing or maybe even a call to police. Now, in his column, Kristoff asks what might happen to a Social Security administrator or a high school principal who's caught using their official positions to personally benefit themselves. I wanted to give you a different hypothetical example, and I'll use myself as that example. As you know, I'm the senior political correspondent here on a progressive-leaning show. Now, let's say Donald Trump Jr. decided to run for governor of New York and do so as a Republican. He would have his work cut out for him in a Democratic state, so if I offered him a flattering interview and a profile here, he'd probably jump at the chance to share his message with our lefter-leaning audience. But if I then said, I would like you to do me a favor, and I mentioned I was looking for a new apartment, or specifically asked him to help me get an apartment in Trump Tower, and you found out, pretty sure you'd all be demanding my head, that is if Rich didn't fire me first. Plus, the police and prosecutors would have some questions for me, even if I never got that apartment. Well, that's essentially what Donald Trump is accused of, abusing his official office for his personal gain. But maybe I'm not the best comparison. What if, instead of Donald Trump being personally accused or accused of personally benefiting from his office, there were allegations that Barack Obama was doing the same thing? Well, frankly, we know the answer to that. President Trump keeps complaining about a totally legitimate book and media deal that the Obamas got after Obama left office. Trump also stands accused of having his personal attorney conduct a shadow foreign policy, Rudy Giuliani's pressure campaign in Ukraine. Now imagine the reaction if Obama had done the exact same thing. Actually, we really don't have to imagine what the reaction would be, because when Obama's later Attorney General met with former President Bill Clinton for an impromptu airport meeting before the 2016 election, Republicans insisted this was some sort of nefarious plot, even though, and I can't stress this enough, no government action came as a result of that meeting. Now imagine the reactions, particularly from Republicans, if Obama's Secretary of State was spinning conspiracy theories and overlooking warnings from ambassadors like Trump's Secretary of State has been doing. We also know how Republicans would respond here. Remember the Benghazi hearings, 12 hours she was on the stand? What if Obama's Attorney General seemed to put protecting Obama above acting as the nation's top law enforcement official? Now, all of this may help explain why Trump has spent so much energy trying to paint everything Obama did as corrupt, perhaps to make himself look better by comparison. And to all those Trump supporters, including the several Republicans we heard from in the hearing yesterday who say none of this matters because Democrats have been looking to impeach Trump since before he took office, regardless of the reason, I offer this reminder from the Washington Post, November 3rd, 2016, 5 days before the election. The headline, some Republicans are discussing their plans for President Clinton, starting with impeachment. Rich, it's amazing how often the arguments we hear from Trump and his supporters wound up being the same ones that they were using, or describing the same actions that they took.
You know, for guys like us, the hearings, even ones with gravity, this is like must-see TV, okay? Even if we weren't working here, we'd been watching every minute of it, okay? But as much as it's historical, and at times riveting, it was sad to me. It was sad that we've gotten to a place, not that Trump did what he's alleged to have done, and at this point there's very little in the way of allegations. There's enough of a paper trail and a list of witnesses to it. But I always believed that there was lines, that no matter how partisan we got and how toxic some of the environment was, there was country before party at a certain point. What I saw yesterday in Washington, and I shouldn't be so naive as to not have expected it, but having still saw it, there was a political party, and maybe I don't subscribe to a lot of their policy positions, or if any, but I respect some of the folks that we've had on here, the Chris Shays of the world, and I can go through a litany of them, that, again, they cared about this country, and they cared about Washington. They cared about the rule of law. They cared about the functioning of a government. And maybe two good and decent people can look at social issues and come to different conclusions, or how to have budgetary expenses. But what I saw yesterday was not even the pretense of looking for the truth. I want to play a couple clips for you, and not that I think it needs a lot of proving, but this is Exhibit A and B. Let's first start off with Congressman Stewart, a Republican from Utah, and listen to how he used his time when you had two people who've dedicated their adult lives, and in the case of one not only in uniform and the other through 3 generations to this country, with not a political bone or animus in their body. These guys were there to answer what happened and the environment that it happened in. Instead, look at how Congressman Stewart used his time.
It really comes down to this. One thing it comes down to. This is the transcript that the president has released of this phone call. There is one sentence, one phone call. That is what this entire impeachment proceeding is based upon. And I got to tell you, if your impeachment case is so weak that you have to lie and exaggerate about it to convince the American people that they need to remove this president, then you've got a problem.
Okay, a couple things, Andrew, with that. How dare he to suggest you held up a redacted transcript that the White House has refused to provide the entire document, and they hid it on another server because the people around him knew it was so bad. And only after that became public, because of the whistleblower, did they even give this redacted version, which he says in there, do me a favor. For him to say that this is shrouded in lies, what lie? Name one lie that any of the people that are going to testify both tomorrow, yesterday, and next week, give me the lie.
Well, there isn't one. I mean, most of it's been confirmed by other witnesses, and that's really what makes what Stewart said that much worse, because he's holding up the two pieces of paper and saying, this is what the impeachment is about, when the two gentlemen who were testifying yesterday were saying, it's not about the phone call, not just, here's the whole foundation for it, here's the whole setup, here's what happened beyond the phone call. The fact that he's lying about the readout of that call, but then also flat out lying that the readout is all that matters here, is so distractive and indicates that he has no interest in getting to the truth of this.
And that's what bothers me, is you don't have to condemn the president. You don't have to, go down a road where you're trying to even be, the truth seeker. But at least be curious. At least with these two witnesses. And again, our founding fathers laid out that there are three different instances where a president can be removed: treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. In this particular case, take your choice. But no matter what, they even identified foreign interference in our elections as something that would reach that threshold. And this guy wouldn't ask a question. Finally, Jim Jordan went out of his way yesterday to be the guy. He lobbied, and he got on the dais, and he got to ask questions. And again, this is king of conspiracy, Jordan. But I want you to listen to when he was standing out there in the hallway with Jordan, and Mary Bruce from ABC asked him questions, because his whole thing is, let's bring the whistleblower here. We need to hear from the whistleblower, even though the whistleblower's complaints, were validated by the Director of National Intelligence, and obviously the Inspector General found them both to be credible, and the person to be credible who made them. We also have federal statute that protects the identity of whistleblowers. It's law. It's codified. Anyway, regardless of all that, he's still banging the drum outside the hearings about the whistleblower. Listen to this exchange with Congressman Jordan and Mary Bruce from ABC.
If you feel so strongly that you need to hear from the whistleblower, why not push the White House to also let you speak to those firsthand witnesses like Bolton and Mulvaney? Why not encourage the president to let you speak with them as well?
In the whistleblower's complaint, bullet point number 1, he says this: over the past 4 months, I have talked to more than half a dozen U.S. officials. I want to hear from the whistleblower and those officials that he or she talked to. I want to hear from those individuals.
But why not Bolton and Mulvaney? Why not those firsthand witnesses that the White House is preventing you from talking to?
That's their call. These are close advisors to the president.
That's their call, Andrew. We only got a few seconds, but the idea is he's a puppet for the administration. He's not there to do the oath that he swore to do, to protect us from enemies domestic and foreign here. We may have an enemy for what was done, an impeachable offense, but he don't want to find out.
Yeah, he's right that it's the White House's decision, at least at this point, but why not ask the White House to make them available? If your interest is in finding out the truth, then find out the truth.
Again, we will have much more on this tomorrow, but I just hope we have a better performance than what we saw yesterday. When we come back, a man who was on President Clinton's defense team during his impeachment fight joins us to take a look at how the hearings are going and also how to discuss the strategy when it comes to those asking the questions and those on the president's side.